In part 1, I took care of the power supply problem, got that functional, but we still have problems in the time-based corrector, and there's also problems in the head preamp, and the alignment is also bad. So we're going to spend a bunch more time on this unit today and see whether we can actually get this unit to function properly. So let's check it out. So I got a supply of capacitors. We're going to change all these caps. I'm just going to use regular. No, I'm not going to put the surface mounted ones in just because they're no good. And we're going to replace all these caps today. See if we can get this unit up and running. It's obvious after testing them that they're all bad. So we'll start out with these 100 microfarad ones down here. Another way to get these ones off the board is you can just twist them and take them off like that. It's an easy way to take these. You can twist them or you can cut them. Twisting usually does a pretty good job of removing them. So I twist them, take them off the board, and then replace them. So I'll start out with these two 100 microfarad, because that's what I've got in my hand. Let's just give them a twist, and they'll come off the board. And then I can clean up the remnants. Going to use a Q-tip and alcohol here just to soak up the mess that's on the board. I've tried to get some relatively low profile caps. I went and spent about $70 on capacitors today, so I should have a few for a while. But I tried to get some low profile just because these ones here have a shield over them, although the shield is not so much there to prevent the unit from receiving interference. The shield is there because this has got digital electronics, and it's more to prevent this unit from interfering with radios than anything else. Because when these units first came out, they didn't know how much interference they were going to cause, and they can cause interference. So I'm going to try and get them low enough profile that I can get them down to the board close enough that I can put the shield back on. If the shield doesn't go on, it's not the most important thing in the world. It's not going to affect the operation of the unit, and it won't affect the picture quality of the unit. It just means that it may mean that some AM radios get a bit of interference on them. It's typically AM radios that would get it. Polarity on these ones obviously is important. Got the door open today as I'm working, although I probably should close it. It's not a real warm day out today. It's only 9 degrees out, but it's for January 21st, 9 degrees is pretty good. That's Celsius, so about 46, 47, I guess, if you're thinking on the old Fahrenheit scale. Okay, this next one's a 10, and that one's a 10, so let me dig up a couple of 10s, and we'll get those ones replaced. Sometimes when you do that, the legs don't come off of them and you still got to heat them up anyway. These are 47. So we'll do the 47s next, these two. If you're wondering what the most number of capacitors I've ever changed at one time, it was on a EVS3000. It was mine. I changed 87 of these freaking gosh darn capacitors just so I could sell the camera because they all died. And that was the only one I ever did out of all the 8mm. I mean, you could do this on 8mm cameras as well, right? You could change all these caps up. The only one I ever did was on my V5000. The only reason I did it is so I could sell it. I never did it for a customer because, quite frankly, a repair like this would, push their cost of repair up to a couple $100, and people typically won't spend that kind of money on a piece of equipment. Most people would bring me a camera and they would say, oh, if you can get this thing going for under $100, go ahead and fix it. You can't do it for that. Even this one here is, I can't do it for that kind of money. There's costs involved. First of all, the part costs, but the time and just to do it is a big portion of it. And people typically don't want to spend money on something. The exception is when you get a deck like this, someone like this that's going to use this thing for commercial use, for transferring, for archiving tapes and stuff. Then there's a cost benefit because it's being used in a business. So when you're dealing with commercial units that are going to be used in a business, they're typically willing to spend more money than, say, someone who just wants to copy a few tapes that they've got of their kids growing up and they don't see the value in rebuilding. These two are 22. So let's find got a big pile of caps here. We can find some 22s. And these are all low voltage caps, that's why they're so small. But they're all high temperature. They're all 105 degree that I'm replacing these with. So they should last for a while. At least as long as the original ones lasted, providing that there's no, obviously, there's no damage to the traces on the board. And if that's the case, then we're spending more time on this thing. And these ones were, which one? That was this one and this one, right? See, sometimes you get lucky and they come off the board cleanly. Other times you gotta work it. As you can see, I'm making progress. I've done these ones. I've just got the remaining ones over here to do. There's 1, 2, 3, about 15 more, and we'll be able to give this thing a try and see whether we've made any improvement. Well, we will have made an improvement. I still don't know whether there's other faults with this unit, but one thing for sure, the time-based corrector at least will work, and that should give us something. Because everything's tied into the TBC. The TBC is not working. Nothing else is going to work properly. Even passing video through, everything goes through this digital board. Normally I'm not one that just changes every cap. Shotgunning it, as it's called. I normally don't do that, because normally they all aren't bad. There are exceptions though. When you've got these surface mounted electrolytics from a specific era, when they all go bad, this is one of them, where they all go bad, 100% of them, and you can verify them with an ESR meter that they're all bad. You got to change them. Normally that's not the case, so normally you'll have a few capacitors that go bad in a circuit and the rest of them are just fine. But when you get these surface mounted ones, especially when they're in a unit that's shielded, that shield that was on there holds all the heat in. So they operate at high temperature. They were bad to begin with, and they're getting hot. So this is the exception, changing these all out. But hopefully, fingers crossed, that's going to resolve the issue on this unit. I figured I would just let the camera run a little longer here. Normally I would cut all this out, but there are some people that actually like to watch a lot of parts going in. So for those that want to see the parts go in, I'll let the camera run a bit as I continue to populate this board with new capacitors. So say this is a tedious, time-consuming job. These two are 100 microfarad. One, the other, and usually these come out fairly easily. These, yeah, that one came out. See, these ones are all leaking. The ones that are leaking generally come out fairly easily because they're already corroded. And if we get in there and clean this up with some isopropyl alcohol, we'll re-tin the pads on the board here. Generally, how you identify the polarity of these caps is the side here that's flat. This is the negative side. That one there, negative. This is the positive side over here. Negative and positive. I always look at the original before it comes out just to make sure that the board's silk screened right, but generally they are. Almost there. Got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more. 7 more to go, and we'll be able to try this thing out. Okay, next will be this one. This is a 3.3. I think that's the first 3.3 that I've seen. Should have one of those. These little parts kits almost make sense for doing these surface mounted replacements because they're quite reasonable for 100 pieces. Might make it even feasible to redo the time-based corrector on that big industrial Panasonic VCR that I've got, that I started on a couple of years ago and set aside. Maybe one of these days we'll actually get around to doing that one. It's not been on a high priority because it's my machine, but I might just go for it just so I can sell it, because some of these high-end machines, I tell you, they're just bringing in outrageous money. And it might be worth my while just to recap that one and get it working, just so that I can sell it. Next one's a 1. What's the other one next to that? A 1 and a, looks like a 47. Yeah, it's a 47 and a 1. Okay, I believe I've got all of these caps replaced on this board. I wonder if I'll be able to get this shield back on. We'll try that first and see whether I can see what the shield cover will go on here. Yep, it'll fit excellent. Let's power this thing up for the first time and see whether anything works on it. Remember how bad the picture looked before. Let's see whether there's been any improvement. I mean, it's got to work better than it did, considering all the capacitors that were changed on this thing. Because there was a ton of them. Did we count them all? Okay, power. Well, that's a good sign. I heard it beep. Power on. It says, please set the clock. Okay, let's see whether we'll pick anything up here. Channel. Oh, good. Here, this part works. That looks a lot better.
Concerning Leo.
That picture looks almost normal. There, I can show that. That's my content. Okay, let's load up the tape. Let's see how the tape looks. The tape's going to be the same content that you're watching there, because that's what I recorded it from. Let's see if it plays. Press play. Holy smoke. It's actually working. It's actually working, but an alignment problem. That should be relatively easy to fix that. Let me grab my little tweaker. We'll tweak the guides. Guides are really loose on this thing. There we go. Without even using a scope, I'm able to get that thing almost perfect. We are going to use a scope though, just to make it perfect. Test point is the fifth one over from the left. So I just bent the pin over so I can clip onto it, and then we can set the alignment with the scope. So let's check out the waveform that I've got right now, even though it's not perfect. The picture's good, but the waveform's going to be off by a country mile. But let's get a shot of the scope, and I'll tweak it right in. So here's my waveform to start. I don't have it triggered. That's why it's drifting. One of my probes is broken. But we can still do it without that. There's one edge flat there, and then that's the entry guide, and then the exit guide. We're going to make this one flat too. Now these guides are really loose, so I'm just going to tighten them up a bit. Just going to eject the tape so that I can get to the lock screws and tighten them up a bit so that they won't just spin on their own. On the back side of the guides down here, there are little lock screws that we need to tighten up. If I can get the screwdriver in there, that is. I may have to take this little yellow grip off of here just so I can get enough clearance in there to get the screwdriver in. It's a very tight fit. I'll have to get in here to tighten these up. See how loose the guides are? Like they're really loose. That's what one of the problems that happened with these was the guides got really loose on them. I may have to use a different screwdriver. I may have to use one of the little blade slot screwdrivers. Try the 0.9 millimeter. Just because I can't get in there at the angle that it is. That one's not so loose now. It doesn't move when I put my finger on it. This one will do the same on this one. And just see if they're still, yeah, they're. Now I'll just reload the tape. We'll verify that the alignment is good and put the scope back up. And I'm almost perfect. Gonna tweak this one ever so slightly. There we go. There. Almost perfect. Show you guys the results now. That, I would say, is pretty damn near perfect. Well, after this thing ran perfectly there for about half an hour, it now seems to have developed another problem. It's trying to play every tape as if it's an LP tape. And if I look at the RF is all distorted coming out of the head. So we may have a preamp problem now, and it's either that or the head's not putting out the right signal. Shit! More of these blasted things, this time in the preamp. Well, I guess they all have to be swapped out too, because this thing's not reading the heads, not reading the tape. So we'll unplug the preamp and we'll recap this little bugger too. This job's getting more expensive by the hour. Literally, it's getting more expensive by the hour. Well, I've got some spare caps, so let's start. Let's do the ones in this can as well. This time there's only, what, about 9 of them? Oh yeah, they smell. They're stinking. These ones are bad, for sure. For shits and giggles, let's just check the ESR on these things. That they're going to be, yeah, bad. Bad. Yeah. 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 Yep, they're bad. They're all bad. I wonder how many other areas of this board have these. This set has these. I think the other ones are all through hole. I think these are the only ones on here, but you can probably see. These ones leaking already. Okay, 10. What do we got here? 1 at 50, 10 at 16, 10 at 16. I got lots of them anyway, so we'll just work our way through and recap. At least I won't have to do an alignment now because it should be good. I've already got the chassis aligned, or got the transport aligned, so it should be a matter of just replacing these, plugging it in, and having it work. I guess that's the idea. Okay, so this one's a 10 at 16. We'll start with this one here that's leaking crud all over the board. 10 at 16, you can see it's been leaking because it's got residue on the board. Clean that out. I hadn't planned on making a career out of this one, but it's starting to sound that way. But by the time this one gets done, the guy could have bought a new machine. Well, he literally will have a new machine. With all the surface-mounted capacitors replaced in this one, it should be good for a while, at least until the heads wear out. But this should keep this one running for many years. Man, this one sure left a lot of crud on the board, didn't it? That one is a 10. This one is a 1 microfarad at 50. This tip is new and it certainly isn't lasting like my last one. I figure what happened was, while this thing was running, this cap started to leak, and once the crap started to leak out onto the board, it got conductive, and all of a sudden it starts reading it wrong, and the speed changed to the LP speed. The machine was thinking there was an LP tape in it, and it just wasn't playing at all. And see, that's the thing, when you get into these vintage machines, you never know how far the damage has gotten on them until you actually get into them. So like something like this, it's really hard to give an estimate on someone without saying, well, you could be looking at $300 or $400. Do you want to spend that kind of money? Because you don't know until you actually start changing parts. I haven't even talked to this guy on this one. But it's not going to be cheap. He'll have watched the video by the time he sees it, so he's going to be expecting it, and he knows how much work has been put into this thing. But again, it's a business that is in the archiving business, so they can write this off. You know, it's not someone who's just doing it as a hobby for their own use. This is a business that's using this, so this one, they want this thing overhauled because they're going to use it to, you know, as part of their business. So it needs to be done just for reliability. This one's a 10. So we'll take that one out. Yeah, that one's kind of leaking a bit too, isn't it? It doesn't look to be as bad as some of the other ones. Let's get my old alcohol Q-tip in here and clean that up. So you guys are watching this. This is, of course, part 2. I hadn't decided when I started shooting this. I kind of shot the first part. I had to get parts, and I was going to make it as just a 1-part video. But after running into the extra problems, I ran onto this one with the extra parts. I figured I'd make this a 2-parter. So otherwise we're getting into a video that's just way too long. And having it as a two-parter video, I do better on it because there's more advertising revenue. These two are 22s. You can see that they've been leaking too. Two 22s here. 22 number 1. And that one looks like it took off the traces with it. We have to do a bit of repair on the board there. Okay, the last ones are, there's 2 10s and 2 1s. There's 2 10s and a couple of 1s. There's a 1 there. Yep, 1. Another one. That should do it for this. And hopefully that's all that's wrong with it. I'm sure it is at this point. That's a 10. with a 1. Down to the wire now, folks. Just 2 more. Another 10 and another 1. There's the 10. There's the 1. So the total time so far I've spent on this unit now is on 5 hours. Well, that's just today. Never mind the time I spent on it yesterday. This machine's been basically an entire day. Because I spent a little while on it yesterday. And then, well, that's the troubleshooting video. But today I left my house at 11 o'clock this morning to go and get parts, and got back at around 1 o'clock, I guess, when I got back. By the time I made it into town and back and grabbed some lunch and got back here, it was around 1, and then I started working on this shortly after, and it's now 5, so I got about 4 hours of work so far onto this machine today, just changing all these stupid capacitors out. The camera hasn't been running the entire time, but it's been a big job. Let's put the preamp in, and fingers crossed this thing's gonna work properly. There, I think that's snapped in. And then the head has to plug in to the bottom here. I think it's plugged in. There it is. It's playing. PCM sound is working, as is the AFM. Yeah, okay. I'll just try my Hi8 tape in here now. This is the one that's got all the dropouts in it. That's just coming off of my modulator, that. There's the AFM. Looking perfect. Good old Shadowfax, can't play that, but hey, I'm going to say this one's fixed. I'm going to let this thing just play for a while, like I do with all the big ones that I do when I'm making actually making money on repairs, which is something that I don't do very often. It seems like I give my work away a lot for people with their little tape decks and stuff that don't want to pay any money. But occasionally I'll get one that like this, which is actually one that I can make some money on. Anyway, this one here, this was a big job. This was probably the biggest one I've had in, probably a couple of years as far as rebuilding goes. But again, when you get some of these units like these EVS3000s and the EVS7000s and all these fancy these Hi8 decks, which are in really short supply, same with Beta, right? These are hard to come by, these machines, and they all need extensive work. Every one of them needs extensive work. So when you get these ones in, you gotta spend the extra time on it. It's certainly worthwhile to someone who's got a machine like this to spend the money to get it done. Anyway, but here's a prime example here though of the difference. If you remember this tape when I played it on that EVO9800, the dropouts, right? Same tape, dropout city on the EVO9800. On this one it plays really good, plays almost perfect. Same with the EVS7000, this will also play very well. You still get there's still dropouts there. You can't do anything about them, but at least the tape is not sticking to the drum like it was on the other one with a U loading mechanism. These tapes are just really bad on the U loader, but on the M design, the M loading design, the evaporated tapes, no problem. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.